It's going to go live now. All right, we should be able to be live now. Give me 1 second and I will get my intro ready here. And then we should be ready to turn it over to Lora pretty quickly. All right, thank you for joining us on our last day of the Fox Cities Book Festival 2020. It has been a great week and we've had incredible authors and we're really excited to continue this day with another great lineup. So thank you for joining us. I'm going to run through this intro a little quickly because we want to give Lora the time that she deserves to talk with us today. So if you have not seen the Fox Cities Reads, check this out on our website, the foxcitiesbookfestival.org. All of the information is there for you. We have incredible sponsors that keep us going every year. Please consider helping this festival continue, either financially or by volunteering to help us put this incredible week-long event on for you. We will have another event later today that memorializes an incredible asset to the Fox Cities Book Festival and his work. And please join us to learn more about Christopher Kuhn-Slater. And let me just see if those are some of the organizations and people that help make this work. Some ways you can support us. Always, we're going to, recognize our code of conduct, and we expect respectful discussion. And so here we are. We are joined today by Lora Hyler, and she has a great lineup of information for us. So I'm going to turn it right over to Lora today and let her get started. Lora, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. So happy to be here again with the Fox Cities Book Festival. And I hope everyone that's listening has really had a chance to take advantage of this because it's been a wonderful first-time experience for me, and everyone I've met has just been fantastic. And so I think we really have to salute the hardworking volunteers of the festival. I want to talk a little bit about my author's journey. If you've heard from any other authors, you know that everyone has a unique experience. And I have found that it's very, very helpful for to hear of those experiences because it really gives you a lot of hope and inspiration. And you think about how you can navigate the very difficult publishing industry if you're really trying to break in for the first time, or perhaps you've even been writing, you've been published, and you're looking at how to keep your career going. So I'm pretty much going to divide this up into 3 different parts. And I wanted to just start with sort of the very beginning, because I really believe that people that are voracious readers as children often try their hand at writing. And so it's really incumbent upon us as parents and for those of you who are grandparents to really keep your kids reading, because it really just increases their whole knowledge of more than just the little circle that they're in as far as their neighborhood, their city, their state. They really get to learn about different cultures and religions, and it's a beautiful thing. So when I was a child, I very much had a strong interest in reading. My parents were very heavy on education and bought a lot of books, from encyclopedias to different types of storybooks, Bible books. And so I really spent a lot of time curled up into my room reading whatever had caught my interest in the library that day. And I very much was a patron of both my school library and my public library and had a great time. One incident that I want to share, which is going to be, you'll find weaving throughout this talk today, about the whole issue of, there's going to be people that are going to say, are you sure you want to do that? Can you make money at that as a career? And so it's really important to think about having confidence in yourself, working hard at your craft and really working hard for what you want to achieve. And so writing is no exception. When I was about 5 years old, I was in Sunday school. And so the kids were at one end of the lower level of the church, and my mom was at the other end in an adult Sunday school class. And we had an assignment to talk about what we wanted to be when we grew up. And so I remember saying, I want to be an artist. And I don't even think I was clear about what type of artist I wanted to be at that point, but I knew I wanted to be an artist of some sort. And so the Sunday school teacher, Mrs. Wiggins, promptly sent me to my mom to come back with a more sensible career. And that struck with me, obviously, because I'm still recalling that many, many years later. And it's sort of a cautionary tale about how adults can sort of unknowingly quash a dream. But in my case, I remember being upset. And then I think I learned something that I still practice to this day. When you get upset about something, it's time for you to spring into action. So what I'd like to do now is share my screen so that we can see a little bit of a slide presentation that I have here. And bear with me one sec. Okay. All right, here we are. So that is me as a child. And on the first slide, I am the kid that is the second from the right. And then that's me in the middle and the far right photos. Right around, I'd say the latter two were somewhere around 6th, 7th grade. And so again, my life was just reading, reading, reading. Some of my favorite childhood books were Pippi Longstocking and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And also, as I grew, I was definitely into almost anything that Maya Angelou was writing, Zora Neale Hurston as well. And then I was really trying to learn way beyond my small community of Racine. And so I specifically recall One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich as being one of my favorite books. And I think I was just enthralled by what I was reading there, as far as this gentleman being in this Russian camp, and he was in this Siberian labor camp. It was a harrowing account, but it basically had this character demonstrating a lot of dignity and strength. And so that really resounded with me as a child. So as I continued on trying to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up, how I could use my love of reading and parlay that into writing, a writing career, I basically was very curious. It seemed very logical for me to go into journalism. And so I wound up working for both the NPR affiliate and the ABC affiliate in Milwaukee, WUWM and WISN, and later went into a corporate communications career where I worked for We Energies and Journal Communications, doing things like executive speech writing, responsibility for the annual report, a lot of employee benefits information, dealing with the news media, so media spokesperson responsibilities, and then also got into some IT recruitment. I also freelanced for many companies as I was working full-time in these different positions. And then in 2001, started my own public relations and marketing company, which I still have, and I solely market my books. But some of the clients that I've had over the years are demonstrated here, and it's, as you can see, a fairly eclectic list of clients that have ranged from Northwestern Mutual to writing for Time Magazine, working with the Girl Scouts, UW-Milwaukee, UW-Parkside, participated in several different conferences at Harvard Business School that were all about women empowerment, and also worked with some product companies, which got me into, for example, I was responsible for a national launch of a new product that was created in Wisconsin. And it was a voice calendar that was for family members to all record their appointments. So every member of the family could keep track of where everyone was. And I was able to get that on Disney Family and Nickelodeon, as far as having like some discount product offers. And so, as you can see, I've been doing quite a bit of writing over my career and have had just one fantastic journey because I love to learn, I love to travel, I love to meet people. So, around 2015, I decided to join the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. And if you're not familiar with them, there's about 22,000 members and 70 what are called regional chapters, but these are chapters around the world. Wisconsin has a very, very active chapter, but if you're outside of the state of Wisconsin, you can definitely look up scbwi.org and search for a chapter that would be close to you. And it was a great start as far as being able to participate in workshops and conferences and learning a lot about, what it really took to be successful as a children's book author. Pictured here is Lynn Oliver, who is the executive director of SCBWI and one of the founders. And then with her, in case you may have thought this gentleman looks familiar, is Henry Winkler, the Fonz, who has written several books with Lynn Oliver. So that's what he's doing as of late and has written just some really, really fascinating books. He was dyslexic as a child and decided that it would be very helpful to children to basically write about his experience in a very fun way and create some original fiction with Lynn as well. So SCBWI, again, is something you want to look into if you are looking at getting started or looking at shoring up your knowledge of this industry of children's book publishing. Prior to writing children's books, though, creatively, I was also writing short stories. I was writing screenplays. I was one of those people that pounded the path to Hollywood every year trying to sell screenplays. I got some good reads, including through HBO, for example, but was not successful in selling anything. However, it was not time lost because I really realized very early in my children's book authoring career that I learned to write very visual as a result of writing screenplays. And that has informed my writing today. And I think it's made my books stronger. So what I have done is, really put all this information together, thinking about what I did in the past and what I needed to do to become successful as a children's book author. And then, like many of you who may, have already been on this path for a little bit, I'm sure that you are no stranger to gatekeepers. So these are the people that are basically seemingly in your way when you're trying to send out your query letters, when you are really just trying to lock down an agent or lock down a publisher if you're trying to go direct to publisher. And it really seems like there's this secret society that is very, very difficult to get into. So that's how I felt. And one incident in particular stands out in my mind. I recall being at an annual conference in Wisconsin, and there was a staffer from SCBWI actually, who was putting on one of these sort of workshops before the formal conference got started. And I recall raising my hand and asking her a question about whether my prior writing experience would give me a leg up as I sought to become a children's book author. And the basic response that I got from her was, well, not really. Now, I was shocked by this. And I remember mulling this over for a few hours as we continued on with that workshop and as the formal conference got rolling. And I thought to myself, this is nuts. So very early, I was questioning whether what I was hearing was the reality. And I thought about, how we often have to navigate other aspects of our lives, whether it's career or whether you're a parent or, full-time volunteer, whatever it is, you're constantly figuring out solutions to problems. So I figured I could do the same on my quest to become a children's book author. So right around this time, I wrote an article for Writer's Digest and basically announced, this was August of 2017, announced that I was on this quest to find an agent to get my book out into the world. And the way I announced this was basically, hey, I'm determined to get my book out into the world. I'm writing about multicultural superheroes, science, spy gadgets, and I'm on the path, and I'm sure this is going to happen soon. So I would say by this time, since I joined SCBWI in 2015, I was probably, I would say, on that path where I had already gotten many rejections. I think if I go back and I look at the articles, I had probably had about 30 rejections at that point, and have been querying very, very heavily. And sometimes you don't even get a response back, which is very, very frustrating. But what I decided to do was figure out a way to get published, and I figured I didn't have 2 or 3 years waiting for someone to pick me. So my solution was to continue looking at agents, but at the same time, I was looking at publishers. So I was fortunate enough to land a publisher in December of 2017. So just a few months after I had written that article for Writer's Digest, I wrote a follow-up article saying, hey, I have a publisher and I'm happy to announce this. This is going to get this book out into the world. And so very shortly after that, we were on that path of signing the contract, moving forward with getting this book out. And I basically got started with a 3-part traditional book deal featuring, again, these elements of superheroes, CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technology is the science that I write about, and spy gadgets. So the book was published in March of 2018. And of course, it takes a team to make it all happen, right? There's the author, there's the editor, illustrator. Quick note about the illustrator. The illustrator for this 3-book series, as well as my current book, which I'll mention in a minute, is from Barbados. And it's someone that I discovered on the internet because my publisher was putting illustrators in front of me, and I had some real strong feelings about the visuals that I wanted for this series. And so I kept saying, no, not quite the right fit, not quite the right fit. And then I was able to find this gentleman on the internet who was doing some amazing illustrations of real people, actors and entertainers and the like. And I decided that he was a great fit and got him on board. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful relationship. So we are moving forward. And again, here's the story. I was writing book 2 right when the coronavirus hit. So I continue to write about CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technology, which real briefly is really fascinating stuff. It basically has been spoken of by scientists around the world as a toolkit that allows humans to basically edit their species for the first time. And so what you're really doing is you are able to go in, let's say that you've got a hereditary disease, some type of cancer that's been passed on from generations, and you're able to go in using a CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing toolkit and eradicate the genome that's causing this anomaly that you'd like to get rid of, and replace it with healthy cells from the body and basically wipe that out. So subsequent generations are not dealing with that. So it's really amazing stuff. And 2 of the women, or at least one of them that I refer to in my first book, Jennifer Doudna, along with Emmanuel Charpentier, just won the Nobel Prize for Chemistry for their work on CRISPR-Cas9. So I'm excited to jump back into book 2 and continue writing about this because it's really really some amazing, amazing stuff. And then in the middle of the screen is a voice changing um, toy, actually, that I pulled off the internet, but it's speaking to one of the skill sets that one of my superhero has, which is voice changing ability. And then at the bottom there is an amphibious vehicle which goes on land or water, and that is going to play a key element in the next book. Okay, so I am going to, I wanted to just sort of hold up these books so you could see them. This is the first book, The Stupendous Adventures of Mighty Marty Hayes. And as I said, this one was published in March of 2018, and I was working on book 2 when coronavirus hit. So I decided to take a little break, jump into a competition that Emory Global Health Institute was holding. And their challenge to authors was to write a book within 2 weeks. I know, nuts, right? But I couldn't get it out of my mind. So believe it or not, I jumped in when there were 10 days left in the competition and created this book, Our Bodies Stay Home, Our Imaginations Run Free. And this book is spotlighting the current life of 7-year-old Maya and her 10-year-old brother Brian as they are locked down, like we all are. And the parents are working from home and they're only able to see their grandparents through video chat. So I got the illustrator on board, obviously the publisher was on board, and an editor. And so we were able to produce this and have this published by July, this past July. So it's been an amazing ride ever since. So I just wanted to mention that, catch up with myself on my slides. Just wanted to mention that it's amazing as I reflect back, I think about if I hadn't really come to the conclusion that I just needed to get published and I was going to do the marketing, I was going to make sure that my books got out into the world, I certainly would not have been positioned to get the first book published. And for sure, I wouldn't have been able to get the second book out there at a time when, I really was just amazed, like everyone. I was pretty familiar with the children in my neighborhood. I live in Glendale, Wisconsin, lovely wooded subdivision. I'm right across the street from a spring-fed lake. I'm 3 blocks down from the Milwaukee River with a beautiful waterfall. And the kids in the neighborhood have been participating in an annual summer picnic that myself and a couple other neighbors formed many, many years ago. And the kids have shown up at my book events, which has been wonderful. And so I could really tell that first there was this silence when coronavirus hit. And then I would hear that there was humor and laughter. And I thought, okay, these kids are figuring it out. We all know about Mr. Rogers saying kids should turn to the helpers. I felt like the kids were being our helpers. So I really was thinking, what can I do to make a contribution here? And I would really have to say, writing this book and knowing all the different venues that it's gotten into and all the kids that it's gone to has really helped me cope myself with the pandemic. So what's next? To keep writing, I am back to book 2 in this series. And one thing that I really like to share with people whenever I'm talking about my author's journey in writing is that someone really needs your story. This is a time when we obviously are trying to get stories out that are covering, every sexuality, religion, culture, ethnicity. And so this is a time for you to think about, why are you interested in writing? What kind of story can you write? Who needs to read that story? And I guarantee you, once you get it out there, you're gonna find your audience. The secret to this, I say it's very simple: keeping your butt in the chair. You can only do so much, like note taking and research. but you really need to think about how do you get yourself on a regular schedule to write. And I find that journaling and writing on a keyboard is my secret. I really like having the option of taking a journal and going off, and I go off a lot anyway to write. I'm so used to um, cafes and coffee shops and bookstores and libraries. And of course, I've had to adjust given the fact that we're in the pandemic and we're staying at home a lot more. So luckily, I have a big home where I can move around and I could just work in different rooms, and that helps me. And then, of course, in warm weather, I've been doing a lot of writing on my patio, and so it's been a really good thing. But it's really a matter of finding out what is best for you. Like, what is the best way for you to write? And I tell you, good things will happen when you really just stick with it and put in the time. I was at a conference in Door County last year, I believe it was, when someone approached me and said, "Hey, this is a quote I think you would enjoy." And I'll just read a real brief piece of this quote, but it says by Goethe, I think is how you pronounce it, Wolfgang Goethe. "The moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that otherwise would never have occurred." And I'm definitely finding that. All the helpers come trotting in the picture once you really commit and get going on your story and start verbalizing it to the world, speaking it into existence, basically, and saying yes. Some of you may be familiar with Shonda Rhimes, who was a showrunner, creator who wrote for Scandal, created Scandal, and also How to Get Away with Murder, two very popular television series. And she talked about how she was always invited to things. She was quite the introvert. And she decided finally, when she was challenged by her sister, to start saying yes. And she said her world just totally opened up. And I find that many writers are introverts, right? But I think once you really commit and figure out what this career is all about as a children's book author and start saying yes, you will see really good things starting to happen. I'm excited to be part of, just going to go back and share real briefly. I am part of We Need Diverse Books, which is putting on a mentor program at the national level to increase the pool of people of color, LGBTQIA people, and really just trying to get books out there with the goal of having all children seeing themselves within the pages of a book. So it's been amazing as I've been to a bunch of different had a bunch of different appearances around the country, meeting kids, and you can kind of see their faces light up when they see that there's books that are telling their stories or books that they can relate to, and main characters are people that look like them. There's also an In Color initiative that the Little Free Libraries has taken on that I just found out about, but their mission is to bring diverse books to little libraries around the world. So that's something to really look into. And I think that once we see the momentum that these type of movements get going, we will see that there will be some real diversity in children's books, which will definitely help us because guess what? What it does is it leads to fully formed human beings. And don't we need that? Some of the wonderful journeys that I've been able to go on, and I will wrap up shortly so that we will have time for questions. But I've been admiring people from afar. I go to a lot of different author bookstore visits and conferences and book festivals. And Kwame Alexander, who some of you may be familiar with, has written some amazing books. I've seen him speaking all over and actually got to participate in a conference, an educators conference in Milwaukee. I believe it was in 2019, and had a chance to be one of 3 authors, including him, that were signing books following workshops that we had each given. And so it's been a wonderful journey. So it's kind of like when you look at these pictures, I want you to think about yourself being in these situations, and again, recognizing that your story needs to get out into the world. And there will be people out there waiting to meet you, waiting to talk to you. And then you are in a position to inspire other people. And so you will find yourself in places where you will have large audiences sitting in an auditorium once we're able to do that once again. At the top of the slide here are kids from my neighborhood, top middle, who were greeting me. They came running out. We were about to have the summer picnic that we have every year. They came running out when I left my door, and many of them had attended a book launch that I had just a month or so prior to that, and are just hugely supportive and give me tips on things I can include in my books, and you name it. So it's a wonderful journey that people will go on with you. Lower right has John Ridley, who is an Oscar winner, originally from Milwaukee. I'm a member of his arts collective called No Studios, which is located near downtown Milwaukee. And, you know, there's this network of people that you find, critique groups, other artists of all types, and residencies, of course, also fill some of that void. So you really, really will find that once you put in that time to get that manuscript together, to pursue that agent or publisher, you're going to find a community of people who are strongly in support of what you're doing. Live with Kelly and Ryan was a show that my family and I were able to go on September 17th. My family, my husband and son's last name is Pinkney, which is why you see Home with the Pinkney family there. I never changed my name. Hyler is my original name. And so we were able to go on there. I was able to talk about the book. I had a link to how people could buy the book. They included us in a promo afterwards. And so you're going to find yourself in all these avenues that you never felt that you would appear in before. So I'm going to end it there. Feel free to visit my website. I'd love to hear from people, LoraHylerAuthor.com. And do take a look. I do have certain blog material and information that I think you will continue to find as an inspiration. So I'm going to stop there, and I would be happy to respond to any questions you may have.
Wonderful. That was awesome. And I love that your books deal with some really unique topics. So your first one was related to the CRISPR Cas9. Is that how you say it?
Cas9.
Cas9, thank you.
Cas9, yes.
And can you tell me a little bit about like how you researched that, how you came up with that idea, and then how you researched it? What did you have to do to know all of that, all the details that you incorporated into that?
Sure. I'm sure I had times when I thought, gee, I could have picked something that was a little simpler, but I really was fascinated throughout the whole process. I started out saying, well, maybe I could have volcano explosions, but then I thought I can't sustain that through 3 books. So I really needed something else. And I saw how dynamic CRISPR-Cas9 was, because scientists were picking it up from all over the world and new developments were happening all the time. So I did my research. I really put in the time. I just kind of kept going. And then I was able to, for book 2, able to land a genome expert who works for a multinational corporation, and he is going to be the advisor for books 2 and 3. But, you know, I really knew that things were totally on point when he read book 1 and said, no, there's nothing I would change. So I felt like all of that research was definitely worth it.
That's incredible. So that brings me to book 2 and book 3 then of the series. Is that right? Can you talk a little bit about those books that are upcoming and what your storyline in your head is already going to be?
Sure. Book two, well, first of all, books 2 and 3 will have the CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing technology because it's still dynamic, it's still evolving and developing. And there's some really interesting sort of ethical considerations that scientists are grappling with because, like I said, if you have the ability to edit the human species, you could think about things like designer babies. You know, what kind of decisions would go into people deciding whether or not they're going to continue a pregnancy, for example, based on what they're learning, and just all sorts of ethical considerations, or designing a particular baby with certain characteristics. So I'm going to continue with that. I'm going to continue with spy gadgets. And then the superheroes are definitely continuing. And so 3 of the 4 kids had superpowers in book 1. And I'm making a change in book 2 where all 4 of them will have superpowers. And then the star of the show will be Aisha, who is the lone girl in the quartet. So I'm very excited about that because I will have a big focus on girl power. And for book 3, I tend to have things evolve fairly organically. So I haven't really outlined or even tackled what I'm going to be doing for book 3 at this point.
Okay, that sounds really interesting. I love that you've got some really good topics, strong topics going, but it's with children as your characters. So
Yes.
how did you work to develop these characters, and did you have one that really stuck with you?
Can you hear me? Because it looks like we have lost our video.
I can hear you. Yep.
So my initial inspiration was my husband and I have just one child. He's an adult son now, but when he was a kid, being an only child, we were a home where a lot of kids would come and spend time. And so it was really interesting just to have sort of the easy patter between boys. And so I thought, oh, wow, there's a book in here. I thought it was hilarious. I really wanted to come up with some sort of a story that I thought my son might be interested in as a child, and also something that would date back to the type of adventure stories that I loved when I was a child. So that was the initial inspiration, and the characters just started to evolve and come together kind of organically.
Wonderful. So I know that from your bio, you've got this incredible long career of really interesting jobs and career path. And so I know that you're probably a lifelong learner anyway. Can you tell us a little bit about what you like to read, and what kind of genre you stay with? What inspires you?
I am definitely still a huge reader, although you don't have as much time when you're writing as much as I'm writing. I am inspired a lot by music as well. I do, well, first of all, from the reading standpoint, I would say that I'm reading children's books and adult books, and everything from picture books to, adult memoirs and fiction and literary novels. I mean, just the whole gamut. For music, I have an album collection that I inherited that goes back to the 1930s to present day. And I listen to a little bit of everything in every music genre that you can think of. So it's really been figuring out, what kind of playlists will get me into writing, and just, I need a little something going on so that I can have sort of a buzz going on as I'm writing. And it just sort of changes depending on what I'm writing. So very much into music as a source of inspiration.
Wonderful. That's great. I saw another author that we talked to this week that creates a playlist for her books as well on Spotify. And I thought that was really unique. And it's neat how some of those artistic endeavors overlap each other. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I'm also finding that, if you can find lyrics to music, there's something very, very inspirational in that, to think about how someone started with lyrics and then put it to music. And so just surrounding yourself with artists, I think, is just the kind of thing that keeps you motivated and keeps you moving.
Wonderful. I just wanted to give you a shout out that someone posted on Facebook. One of our other authors, actually, that was here this week, Gregory Renz, wrote on Facebook just now, "Lora, you are such a gifted speaker and storyteller. This was such a classy, polished presentation. The insights that you, the insights that you provided into your author journey are sure to inspire many writers."
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for that. I love that. Makes my day.
Wonderful. Okay, so I know that we had some trouble getting started, so I'm so sorry if we lost some minutes with you today. While we wrap up, is there anything, anywhere that people can find your work, follow you, and wait for those next 2 books that are coming up, or purchase the books that you have out right now?
Yes, I understand that through the festival, you guys are directing people as to where to purchase the books. I would really recommend people do that because I understand it does benefit the festival. And I also would invite you to visit my website, which is www.lorahylerauthor.com, and it's LORAHYLER author.com. Excuse me. And I'm also on Facebook and Twitter. So if you go to the website, you would also find the links to be able to access Facebook and Twitter. So I welcome you to do that as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today and explain your journey in writing and all about your stories. We really appreciate you being here. For anybody who was watching us today, we've got a couple of more great events coming up still this afternoon. And all of these sessions are recorded on Facebook Live for 24 hours. So if you missed this or another session, please join us there. Thank you so much, Lora. Have a great day.
Everyone. I enjoyed it. Take care.